Natasha. I'm super excited because this is season 3. Starting this podcast, I didn't know that I would last this long in doing this podcast. I started off with my homestay sister, Amashu, so I'm actually super excited to go into a whole new season and kind of switching gears to more of the theme of travel, because that's what I kind of started it off in the beginning as far as my website was travel. So I'm shifting gears from the Japanese comparing to America style to more of talking about travel. And today I have a special guest. We actually met through my brother, and things just shot off from there. So I'll let her introduce herself.
So, hi everyone, my name is Natasha Rodriguez, aka Journey Mom. Pretty much, Angie summed it up. We are going to be talking about traveling today. I have an addiction to travel. I've traveled to over 20 plus countries. I actually started traveling after the birth of my son, which was during my sophomore year of college. So we'll get into a little bit more details about that. So I'm excited to talk with Angie today.
Yeah, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I met Natasha through my brother. They went to college together, and I looked at her website, and I was like, wow, she's also been to Japan, and that was kind of what kind of piqued my interest, because, I also lived in Japan, so I was like, I gotta know more about this girl. But today's topic, we're going to be talking about traveling as a mom, traveling mom, because her business is Journey Mom, and so I thought that bringing her on, a lot of moms can relate to someone that loves to travel, has made time to travel, and, does this as her, not really a job, but more on the hobby.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. Yeah. So for me, I kind of caught the travel bug during college, kind of like you. I went on a study abroad. Not really studying, more of just going abroad, experiencing the culture. And it was only for about 5 weeks in Japan. And when I came back, I was like, oh my gosh, when can I get my next ticket out of here? So what about you? Like, what got you started in traveling?
So, I guess it was a couple of things. So, the first thing, my family is not native to the United States. My family actually is from Panama. I was born and raised in D.C., and it was a very, it's a diverse city. Mm-hmm. And so, I think when I went to high school, I went to School Without Walls, which is a public school in D.C., and there were actually several foreign exchange students that were there that I still keep in contact with to this day. And so, talking about different places, that they've lived, and, it kind of planted the seed. Mm-hmm. I did go to Panama as a child, so I did have a little bit of international experience, but that was like way back then. But as an adult, when I went to college, I did a global communities program at College Park where I had to live there for 2 years, and it was with all of the international students and foreign exchange students. And so we took classes together, we had coffee chats together, potlucks together, all the things that you can think of. And so during the time, I think I was majoring. I had so many different majors in college, which is kind of bad. But one of the majors was Romance languages, and so one of the requirements was that I had to live abroad in order to become proficient in the language.
Wow.
And so I had my son, and so I was trying to figure out, like, what do I do now? Like, how am I going to be able to do this? And so I tried to get around it by doing short-term trips. So I did winter abroad terms. So the first place I went to was Italy. My son was 6 months old at the time, and I'm very grateful to my support system for being able to watch my son while I was away. It wasn't easy. The first week I was like, oh my God, this is great. It's a vacation away from all the natural duties as a mom. But the second week I found myself crying every day because I missed my son terribly. And then the third week went by so quick that I didn't even realize that it was time to go back home. So that was the first trip. And I also have really bad anxiety flying. And so I remember just having just like this meltdown on the plane and just crying and hyperventilating. But I made it through, and after it was over, I was like, you know what? I want to do this again. And so I did it again for 2 other terms. I ended up going to Guatemala to do a community service project where we renovated a school. And then I went to Costa Rica to study abroad there for a little bit. And so after having those experiences and seeing that my son was well taken care of and fine while I was away, I was like, I want to continue on this journey. And so post-college, I found myself going on different backpacking tours by myself, one through Canada. I had the opportunity, to go to Japan through my job where I do diversity, equity, inclusion training. And so I got to stay on a military base in Tokyo. And it was like dual culture shock because I had no military background. So I learned a lot living on base during that time, as well as navigating through the city. The floor toilets freaked me out.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are some, like you was about to get into some of the culture shocks, because so it's kind of hard for me to say that I was really experiencing culture shock because I was learning those things as a Japanese minor. I learned about those things prior to my trip, and then I also had a Japanese teacher that I lived with. We lived in a Japanese house, so I stayed with her. I mean, she lived in our house every single day. She taught us things about Japan. She was from Fukushima, I think, and she just taught us everything about the daily Japanese life. So when I went there, it wasn't that much of a culture shock, but there were still things like the toilets. I never experienced the toilets on the floor like that. And I'm trying to think what other things that were kind of just I think the punctuality of time. They are so, when they have a schedule, they stick to it. And here, yeah, we have a time, but we're not really
not that rigid with it. It's a little bit of flex or fluff time, as we call it. Yeah.
Right. But for them, they're like, okay, it's 9 o'clock. We got to start this meeting right now, and we have 15 minutes for this. Okay, and then we're moving on to the next thing. So I was just like, okay, they're not playing around over here. So what other things like the toilet, or not even maybe just Japan, but maybe some other places that you experienced that?
I was going to say Japan, I probably had the most culture shock from the floor toilets. I remember going, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm in the men's restroom. And I went in all of them, and all the toilets looked the same. And so I asked someone, and they were just like, no, you squat. And so I was just like, I tried my best to squat. Hopefully I aimed correctly. It was just a very interesting experience. Between the floor toilets, I love sushi, but I never learned how to correctly use chopsticks. There's been plenty of people that have tried to teach me. So I remember going to this restaurant and asking for a fork. And there was just all of this talk and murmur, and I remember our waitress saying something out loud and everyone laughing. I'm trying to figure out what is so funny. So the person translated to me, only babies use forks. So when she came out, she gave me a baby fork. I was like, oh, okay. So I had too much pride to use that fork, so I used the chopsticks. I struggled with it.
Right.
And then I think the train during rush hour was an experience. I was packed in there like sardines, and
did you experience being pushed
inside? We were pushed inside. I couldn't breathe. It was and me being short as well, it was just kind of it just was not a good combination. And finally, when the train did start to clear out and I found a seat, a stranger fell asleep on me. So.
Yeah, there you go. I'm about to say, you don't fully experience Japan's trains until somebody sleeps on you. That is a fact, because I've had that happen to me multiple times. I'm just get off my shoulder. But yeah, okay, good. Nice. So kind of pushing along, were there any anything that you learned from traveling that you kind of use in your day-to-day life? For example, for me, when I was over in Japan, and I don't know if this is just from traveling, but just kind of living abroad, I learned more patience, how to be more patient with things and being more flexible. Because for them in Japan, you may go into a situation where, okay, it's going to be like this, but then it's totally opposite of what you expected. And so there were times where I was supposed to teach a lesson, and the kids are like, well, we already learned this. Like, we were taught this already. I'm like, okay, so I'm switching up my lesson plans, kind of thinking of new games to play with them. So I learned to, like, not get so outraged, but just like, okay, let's just switch this up. But what about you? Like, were there any things, like, during your traveling or when you stayed in different places that you kind of, like, learned to kind of bring back with you?
Yeah, so I would say one being more minimalistic. I used to travel very, very heavy with a lot of things. And so I remember going on one trip where all of my luggage was practically lost, and I had to just have what was in my carry-on bag. Wow. So, and I still had a great time. So I was like, all right, I really didn't need all of those things. You know, maybe that was a teachable moment to let me know to just, you know, not have all that baggage with me. Like you said, being flexible. I also feel like it helped my problem-solving skills. I've been in places where I didn't speak the language that well, and I would get lost or stranded, and then you got to figure it out. In addition to probably increasing my social skills. I'm already an extrovert. I already love people. And so going abroad, I'm constantly just making myself known in the areas because I normally stay locally with the Airbnb host in very, like, you know, local neighborhoods. They're not in a hotel or anything. So I'm navigating through these new environments and saying hi to all the neighbors. You know, I'm making sure I'm immersing myself in the culture. So I'm eating the foods. You know, if they don't have hot water, I get used to the cold showers. You know, when I went to Cuba, you know, like it was different throwing the toilet paper in the trash can versus the toilet. Just a lot of different things that I just had to, like you said, you have to adjust and you have to adapt. So I've learned a lot of transferable skills from traveling that I definitely use while I'm here.
Absolutely. When I was in Mexico, there was a couple places where they had the sign like, don't flush the toilet paper in the toilet, and I knew I read it, and I still did it out of habit. I was just like, dang it, and it didn't flush, and I was just like, well, that's my problem. But yeah, so that's good. And I think that's why I really do advocate, you know, for everyone to travel, because you get so much out of it. Not just, you know, the place that you're going to, you're getting the culture, you're getting life lessons. And that's just something that you can't get when you're just staying in your own city, your own town, your own state. Like, there's just so much more to this world. But
you also really get to see people for who they are. And I guess just to clarify, like, just the human side of folks. I think a lot of times we always are so focused on the visible differences that we really forget about the invisible similarities that we have. And so I think I find a piece of myself everywhere that I go. And I'm always connecting with people that, you know, they had a different journey or different experience or whatever the case may be. We don't look nothing alike or various different backgrounds. And it's like, wow, we connect a lot. And I would not have known that unless I actually sparked up that conversation. And so that's one of the things I'm always telling people. It's like, yeah, don't focus on the visible differences. You know, have a conversation and you'll realize you actually have more in common than the differences.
That's so true. That's so true. I remember this one instance when, I mean, most of the time I was by myself, but I was just wandering through just this really small town in Osaka, and this town is really known for, like, their handmade goods, really, like, mom and pop stores. And so I saw this one store, and it had, like, a cat in the window, and I think I was vlogging at the time, and so I was videotaping the cat in the window because it was, I don't know, it just stood out. It was funny to me. And these old Japanese guys just came up and looked at the cat as well. And in Japanese, he was like, that's interesting, right? Like, that's so funny. I was like, yeah, it is. And then he was like, what? Like, he was just shocked that I responded back to him. And then we just started talking, and it was just that small conversation that we had was just like, wow. Like, they don't care, like, you know, where I'm from or what color of skin I am, but we just were able to have that little contact just because of the cat in the window. So I always like to remember that, that little time. But so kind of gliding along. So all those experiences, is that what crafted you, or not crafted, but kind of geared you into starting Journey Mom?
So yes. Because I've done so much solo travel, I always have crazy adventure stories that I love sharing with my family and friends. And so one of my friends was like, you really should start like travel blogging. I feel like it would be really popular. And so I went ahead with that idea, and I was doing travel blogging for quite some time. And then I realized, someone had asked me, have you thought about like monetizing from it? And so I was like, no, I was doing it just for the fun of it. I did try, applying for a couple of places. I didn't really get much success in it. So then I really started thinking about, okay, how could I monetize my skill sets? And so it kind of worked out where, I'm already doing diversity, equity, inclusion training. And so the skills that I learned from being in that profession as well as from traveling, they literally go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And so from there, I was like, okay, I'll do blogging, I'll do consultation for DEI spaces, and that's and also travel consultation. And so I just kind of put it all together, packaged it, created my LLC, and, here I am next month with my 3rd year that I've been in business, and it's been going pretty well, pretty steady.
Nice. So throughout all your travels, is there anything that you kind of share with your son that he can use down the line? Will he become like a traveler like his mom?
Yes, I hope so. So, there was a lot of shaming and guilt from other people in the beginning because I'm a very progressive parent. And so I think it's interesting for some folks, it's acceptable if you're in the military to be away, but if you're not in the military, you are expected to be at home and raise your child. And so as a progressive parent, I saw the long-term good that my traveling would do for my son. And so I kind of continued living the life that was beneficial for me because I feel like if I'm whole, then I can be a better parent to my son.
Yeah.
And so I do share some of my adventure stories with my son. I show him pictures. I always bring him back a souvenir. And so my son is obsessed with sushi and anime. So, of course, he wants to go to Japan.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to taking him to Japan very soon. He's eager to use his passport. But, yeah, I think the biggest lesson that I've taught him is to just really honor and respect people. I think that's the one thing my mom instilled in me is, like, it doesn't matter, she always poured, like, love and kindness. Like, it doesn't matter who the person is. And so, like, after traveling, it was kind of the same thing that I do with my son. It's just kind of like, accept people for who they are. Yeah. And so the schools that he's gone to, he has a very diverse set of friends, and he's always like, Mom, like, I learned, this word in this language today, or I ate this food today. So it's really nice to see him stepping out of his comfort zone and understanding that people live very different from us. They eat different food. So he's exploring different cultures. I'm very, very excited about it. And so, yeah, very adventurous child. So I like to say he got that from me.
Nice. Has he been anywhere outside the country yet?
So outside of the country, no. That was supposed to happen last year as his graduation gift, but COVID hit, and so as a result, we had to put his travels on hold. He has traveled a lot domestically, so I can say that he definitely knows a lot about the United States, but in terms of going internationally, that has not, unfortunately, happened yet. So there is a trip coming this year in the works for him. It's a surprise. I'm not going to say it yet, but he will be given the opportunity to put a stamp in his passport this year.
Nice. I know I was super excited about my first stamp, so I know he will be. Okay, so as a mom, because I honestly can't speak on this on this part of the podcast here, but as a mom, I'm gonna break this up into 2 sections. For moms to be that just love to travel, and this is also coming from me as someone that wants to become a mom, and I love to travel. What advice can you give people like me, or that want to travel but is unsure whether we're going to find time, or are we going to miss out on anything? Like, what does that look like? Because I've seen it done. When I was in Japan, there was a couple that's actually from America. They were working at the church that I was attending. They were teaching English there, and they brought their 2 kids to Japan with them, and they homeschooled them. I've seen multiple families that were like that when I was there. So I know it can be done, but, I'm not worrying too much about that, but I'm sure that there are plenty women out there that are kind of worrying, like, oh my gosh, is my traveling going to stop? Like, once I have a kid, like, what do you say to that?
So I would say don't overthink it and just do it. Especially if you have a network or a support system behind you that are willing to help, step up and take care of your child while you're away. Utilize that village. And I know that I did in order for me to have been able to have traveled so much. Another thing that I would say is, there is a lot of planning that does go into it. I always tell people, know how you want to travel. Is it going to be a family trip where the kid gets to come with you? Yeah. Is it going to be you being adventurous? And it's like, you know what, I want to do a solo travel. I'm always advocating for, young travelers and even women to be able to do some solo travel. It's very empowering, very liberating. You get to work on your own schedule and just start off small. I started off in the West Coast and then I went to Canada and then I expanded from there, In addition, I would say, sorry, this is probably the part that
it's okay. It's all
I was
good.
trying to think what else I wanted to say in regards to that for traveling while you're a mom. Because I wonder if the concern is going to be about if it's going to be monetary or if it's going to be in terms of who's going to watch my child. Because I'm always plan accordingly and budget. For me, all of my money goes to travel and food. So I make sacrifices. I don't shop. I don't get to do a lot of the other things because I know I want to save my money for travel.
Yeah, definitely budget it out.
Like I said, if you have the network or the system to help that'll watch your child, do that. Also, even just planning out how long it's going to be. Maybe if you start off small, it's it's a day trip here, or maybe it's an overnight the next time, and maybe you're going to increase from there. But you just have to figure out what is best for you. If it's going to be a couples retreat, it's you know what, me and my husband or my partner have not gone anywhere in a while. We're going to leave the kids here so we can go away for the weekend. You just have to kind of coach yourself to get back in the mindset of traveling if you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
So those are kind of some of the pieces that I would say in terms for how you can travel. If you have been traveling, you have a child, or I forgot.
But that ties into for moms that are women that are already moms, how they can get back to traveling, and like you said, making time, planning it out, figuring out. Is it just going to be a weekend trip or, and having that support system. So I think that ties for both moms to be and for moms that love to travel. And so, I'll probably just cut it off there. All right. So now we're going to go into our hot topic of the day. And I like to do hot topics just to break it up, just talk about something fun. I don't know if this is going to be a fun hot topic, but I'm going to make it that way. So, you have to name one do and one don't. So these are do's and don'ts while you're traveling, and this is something that obviously it may be taboo in the country. It's not custom to do. Maybe it's custom to do it in the States, but it's not custom to do it somewhere else. So think of the place and the do and the don't.
So I need to give a specific place?
If you don't want to name it, you don't have to.
So places, you said things that you can do and things that you cannot do.
Right.
Huh.
For me, I can speak about Japan because I've been there, So, very specific to eating noodles because Carlito makes fun of me every single time I do this.
I know what you're going to say.
But in Japan, it is custom to slurp and make noises while you eat noodles. And I've gotten so used to doing that because I went to so many ramen shops when I was over there. I do that here and I just can't help myself because I'm just if the food is good, then I'm going to slurp. That's just something that in America, we're if you make noises or, slurping your food, it's just that's a no-no. It's taboo here, it's an unspoken rule that everybody knows. Yeah. But in Japan, it's okay, that means the food is good and you're enjoying yourself.
Yep.
So.
It's a compliment to the chef. So,
exactly. And at the end, you can say, "Gochiso sama deshita." The food was wonderful. Thank you for preparing the food. But yeah.
A do and a don't.
I don't know, somewhere in Italy. I'm just thinking of the places that you went to. You said you went to Guatemala.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like more general things and not really specific places related. That was a really good example that you gave with the noodles. Even with with Japanese culture with the shoes, you have to take your shoes off before you enter into specific places. I thought about that. In certain places, you definitely have to use more of your manners. I'll say that because sometimes I feel like here, sometimes they just sort of slip our mind.
Yeah.
Or in certain countries I've gone to, it's very disrespectful if you walk into someone's house and not speak or greet. Or even on the street, I can definitely think of going throughout the Caribbean. You definitely need to make sure that you are using your manners accordingly. Or going to certain places expecting people to speak English. That's one of the pet peeves that I have is why doesn't anybody speak English here? And it's well, you're not in the United States. Yeah. You can't expect people to be speaking English to you. You need to make sure you're adapting. You at least learn some phrases to be able to get around. So those are some things that I was thinking about in terms of do's and don'ts. But I think your example was the best one.
Yeah, because he makes fun, he looks at me really, it's not that serious, but it's delicious, so I'm going to do it. Okay, well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Salad Toss. Once again, thank you for coming.
Thanks,
and I hope, is there anything, any last, tidbit that you want to give to those that are just unsure about traveling, whether they're going to do it solo or in a group? What kind of, kickstart can you give the people to, okay, I'm this year I'm definitely going to travel. I'm going to do it.
Well, there's one thing that I think we've all learned during COVID is that you only have one life to live. Life is short. You want to enjoy it, so just do it and stop thinking about it. In terms of travel, I talked about making sure you're planning accordingly, especially, with us still trying to transition out of the pandemic. Make sure you do your research. A lot of places are still doing quarantine, curfews and things of that nature, so you don't want to go to a place and not know what the policies and procedures are there, so make sure you're doing your research so you're not surprised. In addition, like I talked about earlier, knowing how you want to travel, know your group of friends. You can't take everybody everywhere.
That's a fact.
And so just know who you want to travel with, and if you get to the space that I did years ago where it was just I always was trying to plan around people's schedules, and it was just not working out. They either couldn't make it or whatever the financial issue was. And I found myself resenting my friends because I felt like I was holding back my life, waiting on other people to show up for me. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just travel by myself. And I have not stopped since. So I would just say, if you're thinking about doing some solo travel, I would definitely say do it. Start off small, if you're worried about culture shock, and then just expand from there. I think it's very contagious. And once you start, you're not going to stop. So that's my advice to you.
There you go. Well, make sure you guys check out Natasha's website, journeymom.com.
Yes.
All her information is going to be in the show notes, and I'm going to have her Instagram on here. She has 2 Instagrams.
Yes.
So, Journey Mom is one of them, and Culture Enthusiast.
Yes.
Culture _ enthusiast. Yep. And like I said, everything's going to be in the show notes. You can check her out. If you want to book her for some training, this is the girl to go to, and she got a lot going on. So make sure you check out her website and follow her on all the social medias, and she will definitely, reach back out to you. And thanks for tuning in for another Salad Toss, and make sure you go on to AA Wine and Hike. Check out some of the new places that I've been to, listen to some of the past episodes. There was a lot from season 1 and season 2, and more to come for season 3. See you guys next time.